Good evening, fourth graders. So today, I want to share with you, now that we've finished the novel, The One and Only Ivan, I have this I'd like to share. It's called Ivan, the Remarkable True Story of the Shopping Mall Zoo. And this is actually the real story of the gorilla that lived at the shopping mall that inspired Catherine Applegate, which is our author. This is the actual animal that inspired Catherine Applegate. So I'm going to read this, and on the YouTube channel there is also a short clip, a short video that is the real story of the shopping mall gorilla, so I'd like you to watch that one as well. So here is our story, the remarkable true story of the shopping mall gorilla. All right. There we go. In leafy calm, in gentle arms, a gorilla's life began. So that must be Ivan's, or the real gorilla that the book was based on. And there's the baby, or the baby's mother. The baby was born in a tropical forest in Central Africa. He was part of a large family of western lowland gorillas. The troop included babies, juveniles, females, and a male leader, the silverback. So the babies would have been Ivan and Not Tag, or Not Tag and Mud, Ivan's mom and dad. The more the baby gorilla grew, the more he played. The more he played, the more he learned. He rode on his mother's back. He listened to the hoots and grunts and chest beats of his father. He watched the older gorillas, clever and quick, as they wrestled and chased and swung from vines, or as Ivan calls it, vining. He did not learn about humans until it was too late. Poachers with loud guns and cruel hands stole the little gorilla and another baby. So remember, poachers, those are the people we talked about that hunt wild and endangered species. They hunt where it's not allowed for them to hunt, but they do it anyway. After thousands of miles and endless days in a black, damp crate, at last came light and fresh air. So there's the two babies. This would have been Ivan and Not Tag in the crate. The jungle, green with life, was gone. The gorillas had traveled halfway around the world to Tacoma, Washington, which is on the other side of the United States from Virginia. It is the northern border of the United States, right against Canada. So it's north of California. A man who owned a shopping mall had ordered and paid for them like a couple of pizzas, like a pair of shoes. He had bought them. People cooed and laughed and held the babies. They dressed them in human clothes and fed them human food. So already I can see that this is a little bit different from the one and only Ivan, because in Ivan's story, Not Tag, his sister, died before she made it to Max. And in this case, she did not. The shopping mall owner ran the Name the Babies contest. The winning names were Burma, and Ivan. One dark day, soon after the babies arrived in their strange new world, Burma died. With her, Ivan was all alone, with too much left to learn. While he was little, Ivan was cute and cuddly. For 3 years, he lived in a home like a human child. He slept in a bed and went to baseball games. He held babies and rode on a motorcycle. And in Ivan, the one and only Ivan, he talks about those things that he did with Mac. He had to learn many things gorillas in the wild don't ever need to know. The one thing Ivan didn't need to learn was how to eat. The more he ate, the more he grew. The more he grew, the less he could live a human life in a human house. He started to get too big. A cage in the mall became Ivan's new home. There wasn't much to do. Sometimes Ivan watched TV. Sometimes he played with an old tire. Sometimes he finger painted, signing the papers with his thumbprint. Mostly, he watched the humans watching him. Ivan was about 13 when his coat began to shimmer with silvery white hairs. He had grown into a silverback gorilla. In the jungle, he would have been ready to protect his family. But he had no family to protect. Year after year passed. People began to grow angry about Ivan's lonely life. Children and adults wrote letters and signed petitions and held protests. So similar to the one and only Ivan in that Julia took interest and she called the news. She didn't write a letter, but she called the news. And there were definitely protesters. Ivan lived in his cage without the company of other gorillas for 27 years before he was sent on another journey. 27 years he was in a cage with no other gorillas. 27 years. This time, the hands were gentle. Zoo Atlanta wasn't a jungle. It was a place with walls. Still, the breeze carried jungle sounds and scents. Scientists who understood the needs of gorillas helped Ivan adjust slowly, carefully, gently to his new life. Like in the book, the way they played the TV of the other gorillas so that Ivan could see the other gorillas before he was introduced to them. Finally, it was time. Was Ivan ready? Cameras clicked. Reporters watched. Was he ready? When Ivan stepped onto the cool green grass, the sunlight gleaming on his silver hair, people cheered and laughed and wept with joy. Ivan, the shopping mall gorilla, was in a place with trees and grass and other gorillas at last. And that's it. This tells some facts about the real Ivan. So I'm going to read it. This is the actual true information that Katherine Applegate used to write her fictional story, The One and Only Ivan. The facts of Ivan's early life are not well recorded, but as far as we know, Ivan was born in 1962 in what is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He was about 6 months old when he was caught by poachers or traders who illegally capture and often kill wild animals. It's unclear what happened to Ivan's family, but he was seized or captured with another gorilla, a young female, most likely the infant of a different mother from Ivan's troop. The two babies were shipped to the B&I Circus store in Tacoma, Washington, a shopping center that frequently displayed wild animals, including an elephant, who we meet, a seal, who we heard about, and chimpanzees to attract customers. To advertise their latest acquisition, the B&I sponsored a contest to come up with the best names for the babies. The names had to begin with a B and an I, since the mall was the B&I mall, or store. The winner received $500. The little female gorilla Burma died shortly after her arrival in the United States, but Ivan survived. For the next 3 years, he lived in the home of a family who ran a pet store at the B&I, similar to how he lived with Mac. While there, Ivan had a very human existence. He particularly liked fried chicken dinners and swinging from lamps and curtains. When he grew too big to handle, around 5, Ivan was placed in an enclosure at the B&I and spent much of his time in a small 14 by 14 steel and cement room. He quickly became a popular attraction and was known as the shopping mall gorilla. There was little for Ivan to do with his days, although he seemed to enjoy finger painting and often watched television. Many children grew up visiting Ivan regularly. They would stare into his eyes and press their hands to Ivan's window, waiting for him to pound on the glass as he dashed by. During the 27 years Ivan lived in his cage, people became more aware of the needs of captive wild animals. The idea that animals need habitats that mimic or copy their natural environment, as well as stimulation and the company of others their own kind, represented a new approach to care. Up until this point, people didn't think anything about an animal being enclosed the way Ivan was. In 1990, when Ivan's story was featured in the National Geographic documentary, The Urban Gorilla, his plight became wildly known. Several newspapers covered his story, and in fact, meaning Catherine Applegate, first learned about Ivan in 1993 when I came across an article in the New York Times entitled "Gorilla Sulks in a Mall as His Future is Debated." As frustration with Ivan's situation grew, many local residents, children and adults, boycotted the B&I store to protest Ivan's isolated existence. Ivan's supporters held Free the Gorilla rallies. They wrote angry letters to local, state, and national officials, and they made sure that Ivan's story received news coverage. One 11-year-old fifth-grade girl even gathered more than 1,500 signatures on a Free Ivan petition. So there was no baby elephant, and the real Ivan wasn't protesting or trying to get the baby elephant to freedom. But it was the people that were aware of the real Ivan that were protesting to get him to a better home. In 1994, with the help of Seattle's Woodland Park Zoo, Ivan was moved to Zoo Atlanta, a premier facility that houses the nation's largest population of gorillas in a 1.5-acre natural habitat, much bigger than the cage he was in. Ivan was allowed to slowly acclimate or get used to his new life, just the way they did in the book. At first, he was afraid of the other gorillas, but gradually he became more comfortable with them. He never had children, but he enjoyed playing with the juvenile or young gorillas and with the females at the zoo. His dislike of wet weather was well known, and he often carried a burlap coffee bag with him to protect his feet from damp grass. So he had been inside for so long that he did not like to get his feet wet at all, which I know you've heard me talk about my dog, Dee Dee, who also doesn't like to get her feet wet. Ivan was the same way. To those who knew him, he seemed to be content at last. Ivan died in 2012 at the age of 50. The oldest gorilla now living in captivity is 52. And gorillas in the wild typically live only into their 30s. So the real Ivan was able to live much longer, Zoo Atlanta held a memorial service for its beloved celebrity gorilla, which was attended from people all over the country. Ivan is remembered for his quirky personality and his loving relationship with his keepers, as well as for representing the need for all animals to be treated with dignity and kindness. And there's a picture. That is the actual gorilla that the one and only Ivan was based on. That's Ivan. And here's another picture of him. There he is. I just love Ivan. I would have loved to have been able to go to the zoo in Atlanta and see the real Ivan. How cool would that have been? All right. Also on the YouTube page is a link to a video, not one that I made, but one that was made that is based on the real Ivan. So you can watch that video. We're going to talk about this book and the real Ivan and compare it to the book and compare it to the movie and see how things are the same and how they're different. So I look forward to doing that with you. I hope you have enjoyed Ivan and fallen in love with Ivan just like I did after I read the book the first time. And I'll talk with you guys later. Bye.